Have you ever been in complete darkness? I don't mean the kind that when you light your phone up, it still illuminates your face, or where street lights filter through your curtains. I mean absolute complete darkness, the kind where you can't even see your hand in front of your face. A few years ago, I was working an event in Sturgis, and I got to tour this crazy cave system. And at the very deepest point, our guide did something unexpected. "I'm gonna turn out all the lights," she said, just for 30 seconds or so. When she flipped the switch, the darkness was physical, tangible. It felt like it was pressing against my skin. And in those 30 seconds, something strange happened. I became immensely aware of my breath. The slightest sound, it echoed dramatically. And most surprisingly, when she finally lit one single tiny match, its flame seemed to fill the entire cavern. One small flame pushing back against absolute darkness that was there just moments before. That's the image that comes to mind when I read Jesus' words in Matthew 5, verses 14 through 16. Quote, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand. And it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." End quote. This isn't a suggestion or a goal to aspire to. It's a statement of identity. Jesus doesn't say you should try to be the light. He says you are the light. So what does that mean for us today, especially when the world often feels so shrouded in a darkness that goes beyond the physical? I've been thinking about this more deeply lately because, if I'm honest, the past few years have felt heavier somehow. At 44, I've lived through my fair share of world events. I've seen societal ups and downs, but something about our current moment carries a different kind of weight. There's a fog of unease that seems to just hang in the air. I'm sure many of you have felt it too. I see it in the comments, I hear it in conversations, this sense that shadows have grown longer. And for me, that global heaviness coincided with the personal darkness of my own, a nasty bout of depression. Not the seasonal kind that visits with winter and leaves with spring. Something deeper and more persistent. It started with a chronic back injury that just refused to heal. Physical pain has a way of seeping into your spirit, doesn't it? The constant discomfort wore me down day after day. There's just something about having to be a man, a father, a head of a household, but not even being able to get out of bed without excruciating pain that will put you in a special kind of darkness. But it wasn't just the physical pain. There was this existential question looming. What am I even doing with my life? For years, I'd built my identity around my career in magic and the performing arts. I love creating moments of wonder for people, but somewhere along the way, the passion of it all began to fade. The thing that once lit me up from the inside just no longer did. When purpose dims, it's amazing how quickly other lights start going out too. You ever been there? In that place where getting out of bed becomes an act of courage, where the simplest tasks feel monumental, where the future seems like a dark corridor with no visible exit? If you're there right now, I want you to know something. I see you, and more importantly, God sees you. Because here's what I discovered in my own darkness, and what I believe Jesus was revealing in this passage about light. The darkest times are precisely when we discover what it truly means to be light. In the cave that day, darkness didn't eliminate the match's flame, it enhanced it. The darkness gave the light context, purpose, power. During my lowest points, I found myself returning to scripture more desperately than ever before, not as some magical cure, but as a lifeline to something beyond my pain. One night, unable to sleep because of both physical and emotional anguish, I opened up to Psalms. I discovered that about 1/3 of the Psalms are laments, raw, honest expressions of pain, confusion, and even anger toward God. Wait, that's in the Bible? People of faith feeling abandoned, questioning God's goodness, crying out in their own darkness? It sure is, and I suddenly didn't feel so alone. Psalm 88:18 says, quote, "You have taken from me friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend," end quote. Darkness is my closest friend. That line, written thousands of years ago, described exactly how I felt in that very moment. But here's what began to change things for me. The light I needed wasn't some forced positivity or superficial solution. The light was permission to be honest about the darkness. Light, I realized, isn't the absence of darkness. It's the courage to acknowledge darkness and still choose to shine anyway. Jesus when he calls us light, isn't expecting us to manufacture artificial brightness. He's inviting us to reflect his light, even through our brokenness. Think about the metaphors Jesus used. Salt preserves in the midst of decay. Light illuminates what's already there, both beautiful and broken. When Jesus says, quote, "You are the light of the world," end quote, he's not calling us to be spotlights. He's calling us to be windows, sometimes cracked, sometimes smudged, but still allowing divine light to filter through our humanity. In my darkest season, I started taking small steps, not grand gestures, just tiny points of light. Reading scripture, even when I felt nothing. Praying honestly, even when the words just got caught in my throat. And reaching out to a trusted friend, even when isolation felt safer. Serving others in simple ways, even when my own needs seemed overwhelming. That's one of the beauties of parenthood, is you're forced to serve. Whether you're your lowest or your highest, you still got to serve your kids. And then slowly, not dramatically, but gradually, the light began to grow. Not because I manufactured it, but because I positioned myself to receive it and reflect it. What I've come to believe is that being light doesn't mean being perfect. It means being present. Present with God, present with others, present with our pain and our hope and our doubts and our faith. The world doesn't need more performers putting on a show of flawless Christianity. It needs authentic windows who allow God's light to shine through their unique, sometimes broken frames. So let me speak directly to those of you who are watching that feel enveloped in darkness today. Your depression doesn't disqualify you from being light. Sometimes the people who understand darkness best become the most profound bearers of light. Your doubts don't disqualify you. Thomas doubted, and Jesus showed up specifically for him. Your past doesn't disqualify you. Peter denied Christ 3 times and became the rock of which the church was built. Your pain doesn't disqualify you. In fact, as Paul writes, God's power is made perfect in our weakness. Remember, Jesus doesn't say you should become light. He says you are light. It's already your identity in him. In practice, being light often looks simpler than we imagine. It's the neighbor who checks in on the elderly couple next door. It's the parent who listens without judgment when their teenager is struggling. It's the coworker who simply refuses to join in office gossip. It's that friend who sits in silence with someone who's grieving, offering presence instead of platitudes. Small flames, pushing back darkness one moment at a time. Jesus said, quote, "Let your light shine before others so they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven," end quote. Notice, people don't see you and glorify you. They see your light and glorify the source of the light. You're not the star of the show. You're the window through which others glimpse something beyond themselves. How beautiful is that? When we stop trying to be spectacular and simply allow ourselves to be authentic conduits of God's love, that's when true light begins to penetrate the darkness around all of us. Friend, whatever darkness you're facing today, whether it's depression, grief, financial strain, or relationship breakdown, or simply a world that feels increasingly chaotic, remember this: you are the light of the world. Not because you generate light out of your own, but because the light of the world lives in you and wants to shine through you. Your brokenness doesn't diminish that light. It often becomes the very cracks through which it shines most powerfully. So today, I invite you to consider one small way you might position yourself to receive and reflect God's light. One tiny match you might strike in whatever darkness surrounds you. Because from just one match, entire caverns can be illuminated. Hey, I'm Adam Wilber. I'm still learning what it means to let the light into dark places. Join me again tomorrow as we continue exploring how to live our faith in ways that transform both us and the world around us. And if this message has resonated with you today, especially if you're walking through your own season of darkness, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I read every single one, and your vulnerability could be that spark of a match someone else needed to see. The fact that you're still showing up, still seeking, still watching videos like this one, that itself is a point of light. Don't underestimate how your tiny flame might be illuminating someone else's darkness. Until tomorrow, my friends, onward, and God bless you.